Story 1, Coachella Horror. I was 26 when this happened, and it was my first time ever going to Coachella. My friend Alyssa and I had talked about going for years, but either money got in the way or one of us couldn't get time off work. That year, everything finally lined up, so we actually committed to it. We flew out to California, rented a little 2-bedroom Airbnb, and made a whole trip out of it. We were both really excited because neither of us had ever been to a festival that big before. We had both been to smaller concerts and local stuff, but nothing on that level. The whole first day honestly felt like stepping into another world. Everywhere you looked, there were huge crowds, weird outfits, music coming from different directions, and people acting like they had no responsibilities at all. Best way to put it, it was a fairy tale world. It was kind of overwhelming at first, but in a good way. We had a really good first 2 days, nothing bad happened. We saw a bunch of artists we liked, took pictures everywhere, ate overpriced food, and stayed out late. We were tired by the end of each night, but it was worth it. By the third day, we were exhausted, but it was that kind of exhausted where you know you just have to push through because it's the last day and you don't want to waste it. Before the trip, Alyssa had brought up the idea of bringing Molly. I had only done it one other time years before, and it had been fine, so I agreed. We kept saying we'd save it for the last day, and that's exactly what we did. Looking back, I wish more than anything I never touched it. We took it in the late afternoon before one of the sets we were really excited for. At first, I didn't feel much. We were walking around trying to get closer to one of the stages, and I remember saying to Alyssa that I thought maybe it was weak or old because it wasn't hitting me. She said the same thing because she wasn't feeling much either. Then it hit. Hard. Way harder than I expected. Everything around me started to feel distorted. The lights were too bright, the sounds were too loud, and people's faces started looking wrong. I tried to focus on Alyssa, but even she didn't look normal. That's when I noticed him. At first, he just looked like another random guy in the crowd. But something about him felt off. He wasn't dancing, wasn't talking to anyone, wasn't even moving. He was just standing there, staring directly at me. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just the drugs messing with me. But no matter where we went, no matter how deep into the crowd we pushed, I kept seeing him. Always at a distance. Always watching. At one point, I grabbed Alyssa's arm and pointed him out. She looked, but by the time she turned, he was gone. She told me I was probably just having a bad reaction and needed to calm down. I tried. I really did. But that feeling never left. Every time I thought I lost him, I'd see him again somewhere else. Behind a group of people. Near a food stand. Across the field. Just watching. By the time we got back to the Airbnb that night, I was completely on edge. The high hadn't fully worn off, and my mind kept replaying his face over and over again. We locked the doors, checked the windows, and tried to relax. Alyssa eventually fell asleep pretty quickly, but I couldn't. Something didn't feel right. I don't know how long I was lying there before I finally started drifting off, but at some point, I woke up suddenly. I don't know what woke me. Maybe a sound. Maybe just my body being on edge. But the second I looked toward the bedroom doorway, I saw a figure standing there. It was tall and completely still, just inside the doorway, facing me. At first, my brain couldn't even process what I was looking at. I thought maybe Alyssa was standing there for some reason, but it was too tall and broad. Then I focused on the face. Even in the dark, I could tell. It was the man from the festival. I know how insane that sounds. Especially with the state I was in, but that's exactly what I saw. He stood there, looking at me from a few feet away from my bed. I remember this horrible, cold feeling going through my whole body. Then I started screaming. Not just yelling, full-on screaming as loud as I could while throwing the covers over my head like that was going to do something. I kept screaming until Alyssa came into my room. The second she turned on the light, there was nobody there. The doorway was empty. The room was empty. Alyssa kept asking me what happened, and I was crying so hard I could barely get the words out. I told her I saw the guy from the festival standing in my doorway. She looked freaked out by how serious I was, but she kept telling me that it had to be the drugs and that I was still having a bad high. I honestly wanted to believe her, because the other option was way worse. But what bothered me was how real it looked. It didn't feel dreamlike at all. It felt like waking up and seeing an actual person in the room. I begged Alyssa to sleep in the bed with me that night, and she did. Neither of us wanted to go back to sleep after that, so we laid there talking quietly for a while with the lights on in the hallway. She kept trying to calm me down and make normal conversation. Eventually, somehow, we both drifted off. The next morning, I woke up to Alyssa screaming my name and shaking me. For a second, I thought maybe I was still dreaming, then I sat up and saw her standing near my bedroom doorway staring at the floor. I looked down and saw muddy boot prints on the hardwood. I still get chills thinking about it. They started near the front part of the house and came down the hall, then they stopped right at the doorway. Exactly where I had seen that figure standing. After that, the prints turned around and went back down the hall toward the front door. I remember just staring at them, feeling this rush of sickness go through me. That was the moment I realized what I saw was not some Molly hallucination. Somebody had really been inside that house. Story 2, The Desert Ride. After Coachella ended, I still had a couple days left before my flight home. Alyssa had to leave early because of work, so I ended up staying alone at the Airbnb for one night before moving to a cheaper place closer to the airport. I didn't really want to be alone after everything that happened, but I told myself I was overreacting. What happened that night had to be a mix of drugs and paranoia. That's what I kept repeating in my head. The next afternoon, I packed my things and booked a rideshare to take me to the new place. It was about a 40-minute drive, mostly through long, empty desert roads. When the driver pulled up, something immediately felt off. The car was older than what I expected, not dirty, but worn down. The driver rolled the window down slightly and just looked at me without saying anything. I remember forcing a smile and asking for my name. He nodded slowly. That was it. No greeting. No confirmation. Just a nod. I got in anyway. At first, everything was normal enough. The GPS was running, and the route looked correct. I tried to relax and even check my phone to distract myself. But after about 10 minutes, I noticed something. The road we were on didn't match the route anymore. I looked at the GPS again, and it was still showing the correct path, but the driver had turned onto a completely different road. "Hey, I think we missed the turn," I said. He didn't respond. Not even a glance in the mirror. I felt that same uneasy feeling from the festival creeping back in. "Excuse me?" I said louder. Still nothing. That's when I started to panic a little. I checked my phone to see if I had service, barely one bar. I opened the app again and watched as the car icon slowly moved further away from the actual route. "Can you stop the car?" My voice was shaking now. This time, he spoke. But he didn't answer my question. He just said, very quietly, "You shouldn't have come alone." My heart dropped. What? No response. He kept driving. The road was completely empty now. No other cars. No buildings. Just desert stretching out in every direction. I grabbed the door handle and tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Child lock. That's when real panic hit. "Stop the car right now." He suddenly slowed down. Not all the way, just enough to make it feel intentional. Then he turned his head slightly toward me. Not fully, just enough for me to see part of his face. And I swear, he was smiling. Not a normal smile. The same kind of wrong, stretched expression I had seen on that man at the festival. Before I could even react, he hit the brakes hard. The car skidded slightly on the loose dirt road before coming to a stop. For a second, everything was silent. Then he unlocked the doors. I didn't wait. I threw the door open and ran. I didn't care where I was going. I just ran as fast as I could away from the car, my heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to pass out. After maybe 20 or 30 seconds, I looked back. The car was still there. But the driver was gone. The driver's door was wide open. I stood there, completely frozen, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I heard something behind me. Footsteps. Slow, steady. Coming from somewhere in the desert. I didn't turn around. I just ran again. I don't even remember how long I ran before I finally reached a main road. A passing car eventually stopped and helped me. I must have looked completely insane trying to explain what happened. The weirdest part. When I reported it later, the ride didn't exist. No record. No driver. No trip history. Nothing. Like I was never in that car at all. Story 3, The Last Night. By the time I made it to the second Airbnb, I was completely drained. Physically, mentally, everything. I told myself over and over that what happened with the ride didn't make sense, but there had to be a logical explanation. There always is. That's what I kept holding on to. The place I booked was smaller than the first one. Just a one-bedroom unit on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. Nothing special, but it looked clean and safe. The host had left the key in a lockbox, and everything went smoothly getting inside. At first, it felt normal. Too normal. Which, after everything that had happened, almost felt worse. I double-checked every lock, every window, every corner of the place. I even looked under the bed and inside the closet like I was a kid again. Nothing. Empty. Still, I couldn't shake that feeling. Like something was just slightly off. But I ignored it. I ordered food, turned the TV on for background noise, and tried to relax. At some point, I must have dozed off on the couch. Because the next thing I remember, I was waking up in complete silence. The TV was off. The lights were off. Everything was dark. For a second, I didn't move. I just laid there, trying to remember if I had turned everything off myself. I didn't think I had. Then I heard it. A soft, metallic sound. Like something lightly tapping against metal. Click, click. Click. It was coming from somewhere inside the apartment. I slowly sat up, my eyes adjusting to the darkness. The sound stopped. The silence that followed felt wrong. Like whatever was making that noise knew I was awake now. I grabbed my phone and turned the flashlight on. The beam shook in my hand as I slowly stood up. Hello. My voice sounded small. Weak. No answer. I started walking toward the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. The air felt different. Colder. Thicker. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The bathroom door was closed. I was almost certain I had left it open. The light from my phone barely reached the bottom of the door, but I could see something else. A shadow. Movement. Like someone was standing on the other side. I froze. Every instinct told me not to go any closer. But my body didn't listen. Slowly. I stepped forward. The floor creaked beneath me. The shadow under the door shifted. Then stopped. Right in front of me. I could hear it now. Breathing. Soft, slow. On the other side of the door. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was echoing in the hallway. Who's in there? Silence. Then. The doorknob moved. Just slightly. A small, deliberate turn. Then it stopped. I stepped back immediately. My entire body went cold. And then. From inside the bathroom. A voice spoke. Quiet. Barely above a whisper. You let me in. My mind went blank. No, I didn't. My voice cracked as I said it. The silence stretched for a few seconds. Then the voice came again. Closer this time. Almost right against the door. You answered. The same words. The same tone. The same voice I had heard on the phone. My voice. I didn't wait for anything else. I ran straight for the front door, barely even thinking. My hands were shaking so bad I struggled to unlock it, but eventually I got it open and rushed outside. I didn't stop running until I reached the end of the street. I stayed outside for the rest of the night. Didn't go back in. Didn't grab my things. Nothing. The next morning, I went back with the host. I told him everything. He looked at me like I was crazy. Until we stepped inside. The bathroom door was open. The light was on. And inside. The mirror was covered in writing. Written in something dark. Not quite dry. Not quite fresh. Over and over again. The same message. I answered.